Hello and welcome to Beefy and Beaumont. Old boys, new balls. I know what you're thinking, not another new podcast.
But this is different. No influencers here, just influential people from the world of sport, entertainment and culture.
But what we do guarantee is unfiltered, honest, candid opinions and some great untold stories and nostalgia along the way.
Between us, we've met some amazing people over the years from all over the world. Some of the most prominent figures, legend in their fields, with a mutual enthusiasm for sport and some incredible tales to tell, including Piers Morgan, Merv Hughes, Dame Laura Davis, Alistair Campbell, Bill Sweeney, Sir Hugh Robertson, and many more.
Right then, let's kick off with a few stories and views of our own. And don't be surprised if we throw in a few curveballs along the way. Old boys, new balls. Here we are, Billy and myself. And we're going to start off with a bit of fun and humour. But also there's been a lot of great sporting events over the last few days. And I think we ought to get our teeth into that. You of course, were at the World Cup final where the girls pulled it off. It seemed like a good game.
It was a great game, Beefy. It was, I think, how women's rugby is so much of a good spectacle now that you go there watching a game of rugby. You don't go there and say, look, these are women playing rugby. They play a really good standard of rugby. And I think the World Cup has been unbelievable. It's showcased the game. They've had sellouts wherever they've gone. And so I just think congratulations to the Red Roses. You know, they were outstanding. They were the best team in the tournament and probably were the best team 3 years ago in New Zealand, but couldn't pull it off. But, almost 82,000 packed into
Amazing.
Twickenham. It was a great occasion and every credit to them.
Yeah, we've got the same with the cricket now with the girls. You know, it's expanding. But one of the things we're very much aware of is the fact that girls don't want to be getting changed sitting in the back of a car. You know, they have to have the same facilities, and that's something that we're certainly talking about at Durham, where we're looking at possibly quite a few alternatives. One is to put another oval at the back of the media centre up at the Durham's ground, and then with the facilities that you'd expect. So proper changing rooms, showers, whatever, everything for the girls. Because at the moment, I think the game has gone past what's available. You know, we need to catch up now and give them what's needed. Because, as you say, the girls, the Red Roses, have proved that 82,000 says it all.
Yeah, I think rugby has exactly the same issues that you've got with cricket, that sort of largely all the dressing room are geared up for blokes. And so really what we've got to do is make certain that all the facilities are better, they're different, and that we invest in facilities. Because as you know, in cricket, rugby is exactly the same. That sort of, if you've got poor facilities, poor changing room, that eventually players get brassed off with doing it. They don't want to get changed in the back of the car. And it's amazing some of the stories that you listen to the parents, how they've driven their children, like we've done with our kid, but obviously for them sort of to win literally all over the country to play matches. And I think actually, Beefy, it's a true testament to those women who started off sort of, the first World Cup, Debbie Griffin, who now she's president of the RFU. She was one of the organisers, and I think they had a team from Russia, and they were selling bottles of vodka on the street in Cardiff to fund it. And so, when it's come a long, long way, but really a lot of credit to those women who really drove the game, probably against against the establishment, really. And now 82,000 people watching, that is very much a part of the game.
Yeah, and with the way that the franchises have been bought in the 100, which raised 970 odd million pounds. Well, some of that now has to go into exactly to fund the amenities for the girls. And if you want the girls to play cricket and you want to play rugby and whatever other sport, it's easier with golf, obviously, and stuff like that. But it's so important that you get You get it right. Otherwise, you'll have a situation where parents will get worried about the children having inadequate facilities, and they'll wander away from the game, and you might lose a lot of good players. So it's time to put the hands in the pockets. You just made 970 odd million. Cricket's in a pretty strong place, so let's spend some money.
Yeah, I don't think we've quite got the 100 franchise money in rugby, but I'd like to think that we can find some money somewhere. I think the various sort of lottery and Sport England and what have you to invest it in facilities. I've got a granddaughter, Annie, who plays, and she's the only girl in the boys' team, but she's now moving to a girls' team, which is going to be better for her. But let's put our hands in our pockets and invest for the girls and the women.
Okay, well, just moving on a little bit there. One of the things that people ask me, and I'm going to throw it back at you, and that is when we turned professional. What year was it? About 20 years ago or so, when you guys went professional.
1995, the game went professional. Really, probably with no real planning whatsoever. They had a moratorium on they couldn't play a player for I think for 12 months, and I think to John Hall at Newcastle, he said, "Well, what about get lost? We're signing Rob Andrew. We're signing when we got Johnny Wilson up there, and so it probably wasn't well planned, but sort of how the game has moved on now since '95. When the days when I played, that we got 2 complimentary tickets for a match and 4 you could purchase." And if you didn't pay for them, they were knocked off your expenses, which were 2 and 6 a mile.
That reminds me. Do you remember that game at up in Scotland when you guys played brilliantly and wiped the board with everybody, and that little altercation we had with one of the officials?
I remember it well. You probably don't need it was at the post-match reception, and I think you were with Jerry, weren't you? Your father-in-law.
Yeah,
I think you
father-in-law.
come back on a tour, and you came up to watch the game, and you were in the bar, and I said, "Come on, come and have a drink with the lads." And obviously, everybody was delighted to see you having a few drinks in this reception area, and this rugby official came up to you and said, "Excuse me, you're not invited in here." And we said, "Oh, well, forget it." And then sort of we carried on drinking. And he came back and said, "Look, you're not invited, and you're actually drinking our booze. And you got a pint of beer, and you tipped it over his head and said, well, actually, if it's your drink, you better have it back." And we all went out the reception, and we went to the bar and carried on drinking. So
we went. We were on the steps for a while.
But probably the first scrape I got into you, Beefy. I'd only known you 10 minutes.
Yeah, there've been a few since then. Skiing, that was another one.
Yeah.
Can you imagine, if people at home can imagine you and I in all-in-one suits in the snow, never snowed, skied or anything before, and when we were actually quite dangerous because we couldn't stop once we started going down.
We couldn't stop. Well, once we get going, we got a bit of momentum, and the ski instructor, he sort of looked at it. But you actually, your gear was better than mine, mate. You had all your Oakley gear on, the whole lot. You actually looked the part. I didn't. I'd got most of my stuff from the Army and Navy store, I think.
Yeah. So, in your time, in your days, and just I like reflecting back at how it was in yesteryear. But when you were on tour, how long were you away for on those tours?
Well, originally the Lions tour, the last sort of the one to New Zealand that I only went out after a month of the tour. They played 6 games by then. I think that was a 24-match tour, and we were away for 11 weeks. I think they went in May, came back the end of August, and the 4 home unions sort of decided it'd be nice for us to play Fiji on the way back, and we lost the series 3-1 in New Zealand, and then on following Tuesday afternoon had to go to Fiji, but we got beaten there as well. But we had a good time. But they were long tours, sort of South Africa 1980, 18 matches, 10 weeks. And when you think you only took a squad of 30 players. Now, I don't know how many players actually went on the tour to Australia, the line tour to Australia, but certainly I would think there'd probably be in excess of 40 plus. And then players came in and just sort of made up the numbers for another couple of games towards the end of the tour. So if you were a scrum half or a hooker, Beefy, then you were involved in every single match, because the replacements, you only had 2 hookers, 2 scrum halves. So you had to sit on the bench. If there's an injury, you went on. So what's it like on the cricket tour? What's the longest that you were ever away?
No, we used to, last time when we beat Australia down there in 86, and we went down, we played 4 state games. We played 2 and had 2 in between for players that hadn't had a hit or weren't playing or weren't picked or missed out on selection, but at least they were playing some proper cricket. And you can be guaranteed that Queensland, Western Australia, whichever state you were playing, they would put their best players out because they want to beat you and get you down. Now, we were there for 5 months, right? But it paid off. Right. We won. We went on to New Zealand as well for a little bit, but to be honest with you, it was a fantastic tour. But I'm worried because the England boys are going out to try and win the Ashes down under. But the preparation, now, I'll tell you what the preparation is. They're playing. They've played Ireland in 3 one-dayers. They're going to New Zealand to play 3 one-dayers with half the team not going, and then they're going to fly into Perth. They fly into Perth. The A team are already there. So the Test match side arrives. They're going to play a 4-day game against the A side. Now, that's the preparation for going to Perth. First test, 21st of November, with the might of Cummings, Hazelwood, Stark, Nathan Lyon, who are all climatised, all super fit, ready to go, playing a lot of cricket. And we're going to wander in, have a little game with the A team. All right, mate, how are you? Good on you. And we're going to go out and perform. I'm worried.
Why is this, Beefy? Why is it? Because I look at I'm keen on cricket, Lancashire sport. I follow it, but I can't work out the season in cricket. That you start off the 4-day game in April, where we know what the weather's like up north, where it's challenging, and then they finish this weekend, the end of September, and so I can never quite follow what competition Lancashire are playing in. Are they playing in a T20, 450 overs, is it red ball cricket, white ball cricket? I literally don't know, and I'm a keen follower of sport.
Well, the problem you've got, because of the 100 taking up the whole of August, pretty much you play one first-class game in August, and then you've already started in April with the blizzards, 1st of April, 4th of April, wherever it was, and then you're finishing at the end of September. And in between that, England, we have 4 bowlers that are hardly available. Well, Mark Wood hasn't played at all for us. Ben Stokes is recovering from an injury. He's not played. Brighton Cast, which is the one I can't quite get my head around because he couldn't play for us at Durham in the game we just lost, and hence with that we've gone back down to Division 2. But Brighton Cast, I inquired why he isn't playing, and with the club, and they said, well, he's been rested for the Ashes. I said, what?
Yeah, but you haven't got any warm-up games, have you, or anything? So
no, but also, where's he? Why can't he play for us? Why can't these guys go and play? Because bowlers don't get fit in gyms, and that's been proven. Look at the record with injuries: Wood, Archer, Ben Stokes. All these guys have had their problems. Bryden Cast, but they don't play enough. You get fit by playing.
So, in a normal season, how many overs would you bowl? Would you have bowled in? Let's say if you were playing for Somerset, Worcester, or Durham in your POM.
Well, we played every day virtually, so it was a case of if you're playing Test cricket, you start on the Thursday, finished on the Tuesday. Wednesday, you'd probably have a Benson Hedges or Gillette Cup, whatever it was at that time. And then you go back to the next test, or you'd play a first-class game starting on the Saturday. So you got Thursday off, Friday, and that's it. That would be the longest break you had. But we were bowling continuously in the middle, not in the nets. No one does it properly in the nets. No, I hated the nets, but we played every day, and that's how
you think a lot of these injuries are because they don't play enough.
Correct. Exactly what my thinking is, and I've said this for quite a long time, and bowlers get fit by bowling, but in the middle. And that's how you get stronger, fitter. Mark Woodson played for Durham for, I don't know, a year or so. And I wish him all the very best, but I don't think the preparation is right. I think it's wrong. And if England play Australia, they need to have their bowling attack intact, all there for 5 tests, and the captain for 5 tests. If that goes horribly wrong and Mark Wood breaks down the first game, or Geoffrey Archer does, or Ben can't bowl and he needs to have a bit more time, but whatever. But we're chasing the 8 ball before we started.
Yeah.
And it's a worry.
Yeah. I think a similar thing happened when they go on a Lions tour, that a lot of the Joe Smith, for instance, he rested a lot of his Wallaby players before the series and just played them in the test match. And I don't know what it's like in cricket, but I thought there was nothing better actually in the old days when there were touring teams. The Aussies, Kiwis would come over and they'd play 18, 20 matches, and you play. I remember playing the Aussies one year for the north of England and for Lancashire as well, and England and the Bar. Played against about 4 or 5 times during the tour. But there's nothing better than actually playing for your team. Like I played for Lancashire against the Australians. Now, for 70% of those lads in the Lancashire team, this is a highlight of their lives, to play against a touring team.
Correct.
And you wanted to play with them because we beat the All Blacks, North of England. We beat them in 79, and we still talk about it. And you still talk about those players who were part of that team. And it must have been the same for you guys in the county team. Right, let's have a crack at the Indians or the West Indies, but sort of probably not in your time when the West Indies were right at their peak. But but really, let's test ourselves against these guys.
Well, you wanted to play. I remember we were playing at Taunton against the Australian touring side, and the players, the Aussie boys, just turned around and said, "This is a stronger team than England."
Yeah.
We had Joel Garner, Helen Mosley, Viv Richards, myself, all playing. Everyone wanted to play, and you want to get one over on the opposition psychologically. But that seems to have all gone out the window now.
So there are no state fixtures at all.
Not one. Not one, which borders on arrogance. You've got to give yourself every chance.
This is something that both the ECB and the Australian Cricket Board will have sort of determined amongst themselves with the tour format. Yeah,
I look, because they're saying that we play too much cricket. Well, I don't think you play enough, and I think you need to play if you want to get yourself fit and strong, you're much better off playing for your county side, and then going and joining the test. You don't have to play every game, but you can play, say, 3 or 4 at the start of the year, and 3 or 4 the way it's worked out now, 3 or 4 at the end of September. It doesn't work. The players, we have the ball does all sorts in April, and you're freezing, and the back end of the season, the weather comes in again. It gets it's just they've got to balance it out better. And the problem is it's not a problem because all that money's come in from 100.
Yeah, when we played, you played quite a lot. If you're on tour, you might play twice a week, and you got used to it. Whereby now, I think because of as you know, with your grandson playing Jimbo, and with Josh playing at Sale, that sort of you can't play literally, and I think it's quite right. You can only play once a week, and I think the players now in rugby are pretty well looked after. You see that sort of, for instance, none of the Lions players have really started yet, that they will have a few more weeks off. before they get back. So I think there is quite a good sort of balance between, you know, playing international rugby and playing club rugby.
Well, you was at Perth, I think you had your first game, the Lions, and then, you know, well built up and everyone got momentum, got match fit, and also you've got to, the conditions are different. You play cricket in Australia, the sun, the heat, the bounce, the crowd, and the Aussie
Yeah,
players. You've got to get
yeah,
used to all of that. And believe me, you're not playing against Australia, sorry, the Aussie cricket team. You're playing against Australia, 24.5
there you
million
go.
people.
Yeah, you talked about it a bit. For you, would an Ashes series be the to win an Ashes series in Australia?
Yeah, no, historically, yes, because of the legacy of going all the way back for this, you know, the bales being burnt and put in the ashes urn, the history. And at the end of the day, as I often tell them, I remind them down there that one of the greatest kicks of my life was to walk out Boxing Day at the MCG with 100,000 screaming convicts. You know, it doesn't get any better than that. I loved it. I actually thrived on it. And they used to call the ball and chain, drag it across the field, and I went out to bat. But you know, it's. I think they respected that to a degree because, you know, you want to get in there, you want to get psyched up, and yeah. But no, I think the Ashes is always going to be the one, the world of cricket watchers.
Yeah, that's right. Because now I literally, as I say, an avid follower. I can't work. Literally, the rugby season, international season, is pretty well structured. That you know that you've got your Six Nations games, you know who you're playing, and then you've got the tours in the summer. The Lions go on tour every 4 years, and so and you have a World Cup every 4 years, and now we've got a Nations Cup that's coming in. So I think from that point of view, rugby is pretty well organised. I think there's always going to be a conflict between club and country because obviously, you know, the clubs want their best players to play all the time, but then you've got the obviously the national coaches who want to look after his players and rest them. And I think most countries seem to have got the happy balance at the moment. But also there's some great games over the weekend as well, sort of both club and international. I think the Springboks are looking pretty ominous. That I think they put a record score on Argentina that they won in New Zealand a couple of weeks before that. That they look as though they're just warming up nicely for the World Cup in Australia, because the next big tournament is obviously Men's World Cup in Australia in 2 years' time, and I think the opening game would have been 2 years to go last Saturday, I think. So that
I think,
go to all the major cities there.
yeah, that's great, and that's what you should be doing. I know it's different to the format, but at the end of the day, you've got to play and get used to acclimatize. It's just common
Yeah,
sense. But
yeah.
so taking on to another point of that, is the money in modern sport, is it good for the game, or has it ruined players, have it easier or tougher? I don't know which way you look at it, but it ruins some of the values we grew up with. But I don't. I
Um,
personally think bring the money in, because amateur, you know, and I know, professional sport, it
look,
can end. Your career can end. It's
it,
like that.
look, it's a short career. You can, as I say, one injury, you can be finished. And I just think that certainly uh, players deserve what they get paid. I think you look at the salaries in rugby; they're decent salaries, but they're nowhere near what your soccer in this world, and if you just can't compare them to what the American salaries are in their sport. And I think players should be well rewarded for what they do. Has it changed? I don't think so. I think deep down, I think obviously they're more monitored of what they do. When we played, you know, if you're a rugby player, you're expected to go and have a pint. Whereby nowadays, you know, sort of it's slightly different, and there's greater scrutiny around it. But I think the players still enjoy them when I see them together. And if you saw those Red Rose girls on Saturday, they were having one hell of a party. I'll tell you that they were having one great party.
Did
Um,
you go, Bill?
and
Did you get
I
invited?
think I ventured in for about an hour, and then I thought, it's a bit off my age group, this one, Beefy. So Hillary and I disappeared. But prior to the England 10, Holly Aitchison, I played rugby with her uncle and her dad, and her brother opened the bowling for Derbyshire on Saturday, took a couple of wickets, and they let him come down to the game. So I thought that was pretty good going. Talented family, the Aitchison. But no, they had a lot of fun. But coming back to the modern player, look, it is their job. They look after themselves pretty well, and the clever players, they're smart in their and how they go about their lives. So, but good luck to them. Good. It's sort of amateur days. 98% of the game of rugby, like in cricket, played by amateurs, girls and boys, men and women, just having a bit of fun at the weekend or whatever it is, a midweek T20 game, whatever it is. So we should never lose that sort of fact, that sort of the administrators try and make the money so it can go back into the facilities. Because at the end of the day, the Tom and Ben Currys, they started off at Sandbach Rugby Club. I think it's Sandbach. To probably tell me off, it was somewhere else in Cheshire, but I think it's Sandbach.
Tell you what, and the other thing that the players today have to put up with, which is a side of it I would have hated, and that is this 24/7, everywhere you go, cameras on phones, people doing this, doing that, and we just saw you. I know you were watching. I certainly watched last night the Ryder Cup, and I think if I'd have been there, I think I might have had a little walk into the crowd, because
I think you might have that thing. I just don't know the self-control of players when you're getting the camera, every shot you play, somebody's there with a camera in your face, and anything you say is taken out of context. Anybody can just turn around and just have a quick go back. And I know you certainly would, and I probably would have done. And I just think we lost a bit of innocence in a way. Is it innocence whereby people make mistakes and you say things sometimes and you always regret it, but now you just can't afford to do anything wrong. And because otherwise somebody's filming you, it's on social media, and your privacy's gone.
Yeah. The other thing that worries me as well, and that is the way the intrusion now of the TMO, whatever sport you're playing. When they first brought that in, and this is where the bugbear comes in, when they first came out, it was to avoid the horror decision. So if someone missed something blatant and help, the game's getting stopped by the man sitting in a caravan's other side of the country, and he's pressing a button, buzzing at the ear of the referee and saying, "You need to have a look at that." Well, the game has to stop. The referee didn't see any problem.
I feel sorry for the referee, because he's under a lot of pressure to stop the game, where he might have seen it and said, or she might have seen it and said, "Look, I've seen that. It had no relevance. Let's carry on with the game." And then they come back all the time. And I'd like to think, let's look for reasons for rewarding a try, not stopping a try. And I just think also we have to be better. And I was remarking, I was chatting to Bill Sweeney, the CEO at the RFU on Saturday, and said, what should happen in the stadium? The referee should be mic'd up so that you hear why something's being reviewed, because you've got 82,000 people all waiting to find, well, why, what are we looking at? What's the issue here? Well, and so, look, I agree with you. And you got VAR and cricket's quite quick, isn't it? On it, cricket are pretty quick on things like that.
But I just wonder if technology's taken away the authority of the officials, because when you played rugby, no one argued with the referee, and they still don't do it. It's crept in a little bit, I've seen in a few places, but the referee soon puts a stop to it.
I remember a game against France where in rugby you can't take a quick throw in using another ball, and if a spectator or anybody touches the ball, then you can't take a quick throw in. So you can't. And we played France in '81, and Pierre Berbizier took the ball off a ball boy, slung it in, and they scored. And the referee gave the try, Alan Hosey, and I've had a chuckle, I've had a pint with him. Scottish referee many, many times. And I said, what the heck's going on here? And he just he'd give him the try. And obviously he couldn't go back, and they'd give him the try. And then we then got loads of penalties for the rest of the game as it went on. But we still lost it. We would have lost the game anyway. But I just think there was a referee who realised maybe made an error, but in a way tried to not compensate, but just get on with it. Whereby, now talking of great officials, obviously you must have been saddened the news of Dickie Bird, because I just thought that reading Mike Atherton about when they lined up for his last game against India, and they all clapped him on the field. He said he didn't stop him giving him out LBW or the fifth ball of the match or something. But tell me the story, Beefy, because when you and Lammy gave Dickie Bird the mobile phone, I think this is a really funny story.
Yeah, well, we're playing a one-day international. It was at Trent Bridge, and Pakistan, we won the toss, and I persuaded the captain that I think it's definitely the case of we need to bowl on this first. We'll be good. But the reason for that was Reliant Guy, one of my horses, was running at Doncaster, I think it was, that race. And so I said, I want to watch that. So I went in, got into the dressing room. Pakistan got 250 or something like that. And then we were out there in the dressing room, and I said, rang up the bookie. And you're allowed to have phones then. Rang the bookie and said, she's looking great, X amount. And Lammy chirped up from behind me. He goes, hey, listen, Beefy, just put a bit on for me, eh? And I put some money on for him. And then, they're parading the horses, and the batsmen have gone out. And I think it might have been Chris Broad, I can't remember, but someone got out, and David Gower had to go out and bat 3. So I just learned at Gower, I said, listen, Luba, just block it for about another 10 minutes, all right? Because the horse is running in 10 minutes' time. And he looked at me, and off he went. And out he goes. And 5 minutes later, he gets out. And Lammy's trying to put his pads on and what have you to go out and bat, just getting himself sorted. And he said, listen, Beefy, put another, double my price, okay? Okay, so all right, off you go. And he said, but try and, I want to know how we get on. I said, that's simple. You know those old phones that first came out like bricks? I shoved it in his pocket. And when you're at Trent Bridge, you get pushed out the dressing room. You got wall-to-wall punters going down the stairs, so he had nowhere to dump it. So he gets out to the middle, goes to Dickie and said, put this in your pocket, Dickie, and listen. If it rings, take a message. Now, Dickie is still putting pigeons out of windows. He never clue what this machine was in his pocket. Anyway, my predicament was to get it right. If you're going to do this, you've got to do it properly. So we had watched Wacker bowling, and Wacker got there, and we watched him come running in, and we worked out that when he got to about 2 yards from the crease, if I press send, it should go off when he's about to deliver the ball. Well, Lammy knows now that something's happening because we got it right, checked it for an over, sat down, and suddenly the players' balcony fills up, and they're all stood looking out the ground. And so I stood back behind him, and Wacker gets to the end of his line, starts coming, and I press the button, send, and Dickie goes, bloody hell, and nearly decapitated Wacker coming into bowl. And we thought, I said to Lammy, I think we've probably overstepped the mark here. We might be in a bit of trouble. So the match wasn't a match referee situation, but the press came in, and Dickie got called in and said, what happened when you stopped the game suddenly? He said, it's a very hot day out there. He said, and I had my shirt undone here, and this bumblebee went inside my shirt, so I had to stop the game. And that otherwise I reckon they'd have thrown the keys away, and you wouldn't have seen AJ Lamb or me ever again. But that was Dickie used to do all kinds of things too. He was a great, great character, and the game needs people like that. And when I hear people keep on going, hang on a minute, Dickie's just everything not out. I said, well, I don't believe that. And I think you'll find that if any kind of doubt, he'll give it to the batsman. But it's always there or thereabouts when he gives you out. And I never had any complaints with playing with him as a bowler or a batsman. I think he's the best that there's probably ever been.
Is that right?
And
Yeah.
I was with him not long ago, and he was looking his age, but he was still sprightly and
Yeah,
never stopped chatting.
still
And
had his marbles there. But
yeah,
he's a character, and actually, the sport is probably short of sort of charactered in a way. And I think, in a way, the professional game, and I think the players aren't able to express themselves probably as best as they did in the old days, because certainly everybody had a different skill set. Certainly in the game of rugby, the dressing room was a unique place. And chatted to somebody at the weekend about it, because everybody was an amateur. So everybody's from a different walk of life. So you turn up to training on a Tuesday night, and there'd be somebody might be a cop, a policeman, or somebody, a plumber, or solicitor, whatever. And you'd all have a different tale to sell. And on the bus on a Saturday, it was a great. I think the dressing room, to me, was the greatest education I probably had, of learning how to deal, and especially as a captain, you sort of learning how to deal with people from different walks of life, different backgrounds, and learning what actually made them play well and made them feel comfortable in the environment. And I think it probably changed now, because players are part of an academy. It's like you churn players in, you churn them out, and the good ones stay.
no, and I think you're absolutely spot on. But when you played, you didn't go back to the changing rooms, did you? At half time, you stayed out in the
No, no,
middle.
it's a bit like the story when probably the world's greatest streaker came on the field half time with
Yeah,
Eric Rowe, and interrupted my team talk. And so you're right. In those days, you had a 5-minute break at half time. We were playing the Aussies. We used to, nowadays, sort of, when they sing the national anthem, they have a drink. It's sort of, we used to rehydrate on a quarter orange that the groundsman used to bring out on a plate for us. And he used to count them in, he used to count them out, how many he had. And then he'd go to give 3 to the match officials, who stood it in a little line, and then somebody else gave them to the opposition. And that's when Erica Rowe came on at half time and interrupted my team talk. But I think we're playing the Aussies, and it was the inspiration we needed to win the match. And we won that, mate. We won that match anyway, but that was Erica Rowe.
what did Smithy with you? Didn't he say
It was
something to you
Smithy who
about?
said, somebody run on the pitch, he got your backside on his chest. And that was right. Smithy was right. Good old
Yeah.
Smithy.
But
Yeah.
no, I think characters is the one thing that and I understand it, because as things we've mentioned, cameras and the players become a bit more insular. They're all together and they stay together, which is a bit of a shame, because I think you can get out there and do a bit more. But that's the way it is now. But
But I
yeah,
think they actually still enjoy a bit of the crack that they have together when they
yeah.
relax that in a dressing room. I think even if you saw the current England cricketers, or Durham cricketers, or Lancashire, or club, the England rugby lad, that they would stay and sort of, certainly, I think that they do like to mix. They like to mix with people, but I think they feel they do enjoy each other's company, and probably, as you say, they worry all the time that somebody's going to turn up and
Mm.
film what they're doing.
So, talking about characters, your dressing room, who were the guys that stood out for you when it came to a bit of humour, banter, uh, or just annoying?
Everybody had it. Probably everybody had their own set routine. You all had the same peg. I don't do the same with cricket, that
Yeah.
sort of,
You have
at
your
the
corner.
club
Yeah.
game, you work your way around to getting near the door. Because if you're the door, then you're like the senior pro or senior player. So don't go on my peg. And I'm just trying to think who. Fran Cotton's a great guy, great character. One of the great players of all time, and he would always be very succinct in what he wanted out of the game, and sort of Smithy would always have a bit of a banter, Steve Smith, bit of a banter, and some lads would never say a word. They would just sit there, sort of, and just sort of concentrate on their own game. And I think that's the skill that you need as a captain to leave somebody. Because nowadays, you go on the pitch, and they warm up for about 40 minutes. Well, we would have been absolutely knackered at the kickoff if we'd done as much in the warm-up. All we did was sort of few shoulder rolls, running on the spot and say, right, knock on the door, away you go. And that was it. Never went out on the pitch to warm up at all. Never saw a tackle bag. Didn't see
yeah,
what a tackle bag was whatsoever, and but it's interesting when we play, the biggest thing would be trying to get a new pair of socks, because you got a pair of socks for the season and you had to take them home, wash them, and you had to bring your own shorts, and you got one jersey per game. Now the Scots used to get one per season, and they had to, so you had to be, and then if they wanted another one, they had to pay for it. So you'd have to be good mates with a Scot if you wanted to, if he was going to swap a jersey with you, because he'd have to pay for it. So I remember, I think it's Gordon Brown. I think Brown said, we swapped jersey. He looked at me and said, "Yeah, you're a pal, aren't you? So I'll swap with you." And he said, "Some I wouldn't," So yeah, they had a famous story about a guy called Peter Stagg, who played for Sale and Scotland and the British Lions, and he had a hole in his sock, and he wouldn't get another pair of socks, so he got the shoe black shoe dubbing, the shoe polish, and he put it on his leg where the hole was, so he couldn't see with his navy socks that he'd actually got a hole in his sock. So they didn't give him another pair. So different day, but you just got used to it. And it was the norm. It was the norm. It was sort of, and so that was life.
Yeah, we had to pay for, when I first played for England, if you ripped a sweater or got it filthy, you had to pay. You had to buy another one. Luckily, those days have gone. But I mean, we had quite a lot of fun in the dressing room. It's different. It could be 5 days you're there, whereas you're there for 90 minutes or whatever, 100 minutes, 2 minutes. But people like Lammy would keep you going. He had to have it. He used to like to get a bit of the old they used to call it fiery jack or red jack, that used to run hot.
Deep heat, fiery jack was the other thing.
Well, he used to like to put that in the bowler's jockstrap, just around the edge.
Lovely.
So as soon as you started to sweat,
certainly line your run up, I would think that.
But there was always something, or he cut the ends of your socks, and you pull your bowling socks on.
5 days. You're together all the time, aren't you? 5 days, and it's sort of in the field, you're together, and sort of how there can't be anything worse than sort of you're opening the batting, Ashley test, second over the game, you get a perp, you're out. So you sat there maybe for 2 days while the rest of the lads get some runs. You sat there thinking, how do I cope with this? It must be difficult.
Well, to be honest with you, I was usually quite happy. If we bat for 2 days, it didn't matter what I made, because we'll have enough, and then you go and bowl. So, but I get what you're saying, but no, I think the best thing that we ever did on the tour was the '86 one, when we were written off by everybody, even our own press, and we actually had the Ashes at that stage. And what we did, senior player, junior player, we had about 4 or 5 young players coming on. Phil de Freitas, all these guys. Like Norman Counts was on that trip. But what we used to do, we put the senior player with the junior player, and that way that you could, as you say, sometimes they sit there and say nothing in the dressing room. Well, when you're sharing a room with a guy, you sit down, you have a cup of tea or a beer or whatever, and you get talking. And it broke all the barriers, and this suddenly became the biggest and happiest team that I ever played in. And we went on to thrash them. We thrashed Australia. We won first 3 tests all over, Red Rover. And it was great. Elton used to come.
Sorry. Did you used to get a list of things that you're meant to take on like a going back to school, like a tour thing? I remember when I first went on Australia in '75, you got this list of things that you need: grey flannels, this, that, and the other, and sort of. So I think my mum packed it all. I was living at home with my mum. Sort of. I turned up with a big suitcase full of stuff, sharing a room with Mike Burton, who'd been on so many different tours. He just turned up with an old kit bag, and that was it. He then hoovered all my good stuff. He said, I'll have that. You won't need that. You won't need that. So he re-equipped himself with mine. But I think he just went with basically one pair of trousers, a pair of shorts, and a couple of T-shirts, and that was Berto's tour.
Well, on that trip in '86, the icing on the cake was that Elton was touring Australia, Elton John, and he changed his the venues to match the cricket whenever he could. So we often had him in the dressing room at the end of the day, and he'd come in, well done, lads, blah, blah. He loves his sport, loves it, 100% loves sport, all sport. And we won that game, and the boys christened him with the Gatorade ice bucket thing over him, which I dare say his suit cost more than everything we had in there. But typical of Elton. We won the Ashes in the third test, and he had a big penthouse up on the top of the hotel, and he was the DJ. So we had EJ, the DJ, and a party with all the family and the kids and everything. It was a sensational tour, and easily the best one that we ever had collectively, without any doubt. Forget everything else fell into place. The team were happy. They were good. And the thing that worked was that everybody enjoyed each other's success. And that is so important.
Could we talk about the dressing room? Because obviously for your team, it's 11. For our team, it's 15, because there were no tactical substitutes when I played. You had to basically get a sick note off the doctor. The doctor would sort of see in the dressing room, say, right, you're not fit to go on. And so you would carry on with 14 men till you'd be signed up. So the game didn't stop when a player went off the field. You just carried on. And so it's sort of slightly different, whereby on a tour, let's say you're the reserved wicketkeeper or something like that. You're never going to play in the test matches, and you're there all the time. Or somebody, when you get dropped, how do you go about sort of making them feel that they really are still an important part of that team?
Well, we had, I'm not going to name the player because it'd be embarrassing for him, but he actually, one of the guys I toured with in the early days, I sat there and he said, I've got the best job in the world. I said, well, what's that? He was the second spinner, so he was unlikely to play very much in the tests.
Yeah.
And he just said, I said, I love it. He said, I can bowl a few in the morning, and I can go out in the evenings. I can do what I want because I'm not playing. And I thought, well, that's one way of looking at it, but it's not the way that I would want and most players. But that was the mentality of some of these guys. So, but to be honest with you, there's nothing worse than being injured on a tour. I did an intercostal in Western Australia against the Aussies at Perth, and it's very painful because you can't sneeze, can't cough, horrible.
You
injury.
can't do anything, can you?
Yeah, but I had physio about 4 times a day, and pool work and everything. In fairness, Laurie Brown, who you might well know, Laurie, he used to be physio for Man United, and he worked with me day and night. And I actually only missed one test. When they first did it, they were considering whether I should even go home because of the injury. But I missed one test, and it was Adelaide, I can't remember. But yeah, and down to him. And we won that series. Everybody, as I say, it was great. And it was all in that same tour.
Yeah. Yeah, because I sort of, I always felt for the guy who sort of was never going to get in a test. Yeah, you go on a tour, you'd 18 match tour, 10 weeks, and you're not going to get a test. But they were the lads who probably, they're the glue that keep everything together. They're part of the social committee. They are the sort of, they bring the humour to the organisation normally. I always thought those kind of players.
Well, one serious question, all right?
Yes.
When you see the national anthems, protests, boycotts, where do we draw the line between athlete and activist? I wonder, just a serious point, because we're seeing a lot of this coming around now into the games and people doing interviews, and I'm thinking, ooh, I'm not sure you should say that and what have you. None of that in my day. I think that the only thing that was the black power when the athletes held their arms up when they got a gold medal in the athletics. But that was it. There was nothing of it now. But now, politics and sport, they don't really mix. Not for me.
Well, I like to keep them all separate. To me, you go out in the field, doesn't matter who you're playing against, doesn't matter what walk of life you are, what colour you are, what religion, what your political views are. I treat you for what you are on that field. And to me, that breaks all the barriers. I think sport is a fantastic vehicle for breaking down barriers. You wouldn't have thought that certainly the Falklands War in 1981, that 3 years later, Argentina are playing at Twickenham. And everybody sort of gets on with it, welcomes them, and what have you. And to me, there are international conflicts. I don't want to get involved in them. I keep away from them. I judge people for what they are as individuals, what values they bring to sport, and whether it's cricket, rugby, football, athletics, golf. To me, those are true values.
Well, the proudest moment of my life, people say, who's the best person? You're the nicest or best person you've ever met. And I was lucky enough to have spent some time with Nelson Mandela. And for a guy that was incarcerated for 27 years, he had absolutely nothing but love for the country. And that's all he wanted was. And remarkable. But met him, and it was a Laureate Sports for Good Foundation event.
Yeah.
And at the end of it, where they had all these athletes, all as has-beens, stood there on the stage, and he came up and he walked around the back and he tapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're my hero." And I said, "Sorry, Mr. Mandela, you got the right bloke." And he said, "No." He said, "When I was incarcerated," he said, "I used to get the papers, but like 3 or 4 days old letters, but I could read it all." And he said, "Your stance against apartheid is something that we can never." You stuck your head above the parapet and said exactly what you thought, and turned down a lot of money to go to South Africa and gold. And he said, "I remember all of that." And we had spent an hour or two with him with Kath, and then Kath's flying out to Johannesburg about a couple of months later, where I'm commentating, and she gets on the plane and she sees Mr. Mandela's nurse. She's a lovely lady, was travel with him everywhere. And Kath went up and she said, "Oh, hello. I know we met." He said, "Look, he's having a little rest at the moment, but I'll tell him you're on board." And Kath thought nothing more of it, reading the book, watching the film, whatever you do on a plane. Yeah. And she got a tap on the door and looked over, and Mr. Mandela. He said, "Can I come and have a cup of tea with you?" And she said, Yeah, please do come and sit down." They had a chat for an hour or so, whatever. And then as we were coming into land, he said, "I'll go and get ready now." He said, "But it's been a pleasure. It's lovely." But he said, "I'm very fond of your husband, but he can be a bit naughty at times, can't he?" And that's the words he said to my captain.
It's very astute man, Beefy. Very astute man. That I will never ever forget that seeing him walk on the field at Ellis Park in 1995 for the World Cup final with Francois Pienaar's number 6 jersey on his back, and everybody in the stadium stood. And I said to a mate of mine with me, I said, "You wouldn't have thought this would be possible, would you?" And the dignified way in which he sort of held himself. Remarkable person.
Great guy.
Well, Beefy, they say time flies when you're having fun, and we've been on over an hour, so really enjoy that. Hope you did. Had a bit of a fun, and look forward to the next one in a couple of weeks.